here's Brodie Brazil.
Okay, full admission, I've watched a lot of aviation videos here on YouTube, but I've yet to see one that covers the topic we're about to discuss here. What exactly to do right after your landing? I mean, there are tons of videos on pre-flights and takeoffs, cruise flight, your descent, your actual landing. Yeah, there's a ton of videos on actually landing the airplane. But what do you do right after you have touched ground? What do you do? So that's the subject of this video. There's actually more detail to it than you think. And it's actually an interesting portion of flight because in your mind, there is some kind of completion and accomplishment. You're back. And if this is your ultimate destination, you have arrived. And it may be the point of the flight where after so much structure and attention, your brain kind of lets go for a second. It forgets that it's still actually in charge of life and property and so much responsibility. So you do not want to let down your guard. Here are the things to do immediately after your landing. First, we're going to talk about the actual landing roll, the transition from touchdown to taxiing. You're going to use full elevator, full back pressure, as well as however much braking you'll need to safely slow the airplane down to a speed where the wheels are now under control. Right? So the rudder that you were using maybe for some directional control, and yeah, sure, proper crosswind inputs are great, but now you're steering the airplane with the differential braking and typically the steerable nose wheel on a conventional gear airplane on a trainer, right? So now you've got complete control of the airplane, almost as if it's a car. You're at that speed, whatever that speed is for you. Number one, do not reconfigure the airplane on the runway. And what I mean by that is obviously don't bring the flaps up instantly because yes, that is an item for later on with your checklist, your after landing checklist, but you're not there yet. Don't get ahead of that because you're risking more by doing that every time and potentially making a mistake than you're actually saving or gaining in those 2 seconds or less of bringing the flaps up while you're still moving, while you may be starting your taxi exiting the runway. It's something, honestly, I used to do it, but now that I'm older, I look back and I realize it's not worth it. You'll have time to do that later. Hang on to the flaps. Do not reconfigure the airplane on the runway. That can wait. Okay, we continue with the landing roll. The expectation here, while you're still moving, is that you will exit the active landing runway without delay at the first available taxiway or somewhere else that air traffic control has instructed you, right? If Delta is where they asked you to turn right, then Delta it is. Even if Charlie's right here, they asked you Delta for a reason. But when there's no instruction given, or maybe you're at an untowered field, use the first available taxiway you can. Do not hog that valuable time while your airplane is on the runway. Nobody else can use it while you are on it. So that is the expectation. Most certainly, and I think that's understandable. Do not stop on the landing runway unannounced. And I understand some people want to do a stop and go. So long as you've declared that, like on the CTAF, or you have cleared that with the tower that you're landing at for the airport, no problem. Long landings, even if you want to roll out long, don't even brake, just kind of let it roll, get to wherever you're going. That's fine, so long as it's been announced, and obviously in towered airports, it's been approved. Just don't do it and throw everybody off guard. They were timing you out to make sure they could sequence themselves, either the tower or the airplane behind you or maybe in front of you. So don't be the one to just stop and not let anybody know about it ahead of time. A lot of do nots here. Do not exit the landing runway and taxi onto another runway, right? A lot of airports have crossing runways, and that first right turn you feel like making might actually be onto a different runway of the airport. And obviously towered or uncontrolled doesn't matter. Do not do that. Also, do not change to the airport's ground frequency until instructed to do so by the tower. Obviously, it doesn't apply at an uncontrolled field, but at a towered airport, unless the tower tells you, don't just go to ground all by yourself. Okay. All that established, once you're now clear of the runway, come to a complete stop, right? Give yourself a second to breathe. Pat yourself on the back. Nice landing. You did it. We're here. A lot of times in the summer, you're going to want to crack that window, get some airflow happening inside the cabin. It might have been getting hot, right? But come to a complete stop when all parts of the aircraft, yes, I'm talking about your tail, all parts of the aircraft are have crossed the hold short lines. You are officially off the landing runway. So please stop, but don't stop before that line. Don't stop with your tail hanging over the line, your back of the tail hanging over the line. Completely cross the line, the aircraft entirely over the hold short line, and then stop. That is what everybody is expecting. Also don't just continue your taxi until ATC has issued a clearance, like what to do next, or so long as you've self-announced it on the radio and didn't hear anything back. I say that because while it may seem fine that there's nobody in your immediate vicinity, let's say you make that right turn onto Juliet, but what you didn't realize is down the taxi, somebody is already coming in your direction and there's no other place to turn. The last thing you want to be is nose to nose on a taxiway. How do you fix that sometimes? How do you turn one airplane around? How do you do that? It's a really bad predicament to be in. And that's just an easy situation. That one can be stopped in an instant, fixed in time, but there are worse situations. So do not continue your taxi automatically until you have instructions or until you have declared something like on a CTAF and didn't hear any objection to it. Also don't forget that you're not done flying the airplane until that thing is stopped, until you're running your shutdown checklist, until the motor has stopped running, until the avionics switch, the master switch, everything is off. The fuel mixture's pulled all the way out. Everything is secured. That is when you're done flying the airplane. And that's the thing to remember here about all this. Taxiing just as important as your takeoff and your landing and your leveling out for cruise flight. I mean, there are certain portions of flight that are inherently more interesting than others, maybe even more risky than others, just by nature. But this is part of your flight. It's one that often gets forgotten because you feel like you're done, but you're not actually done. So those are the things to take care of right after your landing. Again, I'm not sure there's another video on YouTube like this, of this subject matter. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments section below. By the way, since you're here, I appreciate that, by the way. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Like this video, thumbs up if it helped you out at all, and check out some of the other great stuff I've got coming your way here on the Aviation channel.